And it was all they got 100 before I went to Bell's Point.
Yeah, but that was before I got this.
Yeah.
Thing where he almost. No, it wasn't. I just had to tell you, so I don't know. Look at this thing.
Oh, yeah.
Those 1,000.
You guys ready?
Ready when you are.
We can reconvene here in our 6 o'clock meeting for public hearings. And at first, we'll talk about the Valley District. Nick? Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This first item is out of the Valley District. RYT LLC requests 2 special exception permits for light auto truck repair and mini warehouses, each with possible conditions in the Business B3 use district located on Lee Highway, Cloverdale, Virginia, approximately 0.2 miles south of Simmons Drive. Intersection identified on the tax maps is 10111 18B. So this slide shows you the property is zoned B3 and surrounded by primarily commercial and industrial zoning type uses. The property in its current form is 2.7 acres in total. The property is currently vacant. It's a wooded lot and has not had any established uses in the past. For surrounding business types, to the north, you have Utility Trailer Sales of Virginia. To the south, you have Cleaning Equipment and Service Incorporated. To the east, you have Southeastern Freight Lines. To the west, you have GFL Environmental, which is the transfer station site. This slide here shows you the proposed concept plan for the site if the SCP were to be approved tonight. For the light auto and truck repair, that use will be located in an 8-bay, 60 by 124 square 124 square foot garage building. Parking requirements for the use are 2 spots per garage bay and 1 spot per employee. The application has indicated that approximately 8 employees will be on site for this use. So combined parking will be 24 spots. The concept plan indicates an additional 3 spots will be used for proposed truck parking. The application has indicated the structure will consist of steel siding and roofing. Just for context, this lot is in the middle here. The parking will be adjacent right here, and some additional parking here. At the very end of the concept plan, there is a screened-in lot that will be used for a towing lot. This is a by right use in the Business B3 district. On the right-hand side here, this is the proposed mini warehouse facility. The mini warehouse use will consist of 7 total structures. 3 structures will be by 50 by 200 square feet. Sorry, 50 by 20 square feet. 3 structures will be 100 by 20 square feet, and 1 structure will be 70 by 20 square feet. The concept plan indicates that screened fencing along a portion of Route 11 here in this area where my cursor is will be used for 3 proposed RV parking spots. And I can go ahead and mention now that the mini warehouse use and the proposed light auto and truck repair use will be, there's no connection, so they will be 2 separate uses on the site. Parking requirements for this use are 1 spot for every 250 square feet of office space and 1 spot per employee. The proposed office space will be for 250 square feet or less. And this will also be steel siding like the proposed garage site. The property is currently owned by RYT LLC, but it's our understanding that upon SEP approval, that Brandon Base will be the owner and operator of the Hometown Auto, which is the official name of the site. If the SEP is approved, a technical site plan will be required to show conformance to all applicable building and zoning standards. So that will cover anything not mentioned in this presentation. We are suggesting SEP conditions for each use. So the first is that all development shall remain in substantial conformance to the concept plan prepared by Engineering Concepts titled Hometown Auto, dated December 29th, 2022. That was the concept plan that you all just saw. The second condition is that all vehicles awaiting repair that are kept overnight shall be restored within the fenced areas shown in the concept plan and shall not be visible from any right-of-ways or adjacent properties. The third condition is that there shall be no outdoor storage of equipment or auto parts. Fourth condition is that no noise generated by the development shall not violate the provisions of the Botetourt County noise ordinance. Fifth condition is that all specifications and general provisions shall be met as required by the zoning ordinance, and in no instance shall any state, local, or federal requirements be exempt except where shown in the zoning ordinance. For the mini warehouse use, it's the same substantial conformance condition to the concept plan as previously shown. The same noise condition as stated previously, and then just the same catch-all condition about Botetourt County zoning ordinance being met as in addition to all other state, local, and federal laws. That's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions. The applicants in attendance as well, I'm sure would be happy to answer any questions as well.
Any questions for Nick? How about the landowner or any other questions for anybody else? Okay.
So
No formal elevation other than that site plan, the concept site plan that I just showed, and that they did mention that everything would be of steel material, steel siding and steel roofing.
so how much buffer?
The buffer right now is just the screened in fenced area primarily for the RV parking and then the towing lot on both sides of the property.
And could you go over the mini storage part again? Because we've got mini storage right close to that we just approved. So how many units were in there?
So how many units were for the mini warehouse facility?
Yeah. What was that again?
So the proposed mini warehouse will consist of 7 total structures, and that'll be on this right-hand side here. The proposed fencing, can you see where my cursor is?
Yeah.
Will be
Yeah.
primarily along where these 3 proposed RV parking spots are, right along here where my cursor is. And then there's more fencing along this portion, generally of the concept plan where the towing lot will be.
So I don't know if that answered it quite.
So would there be storage of cars, towed cars outside for like overnight or any length of time, or how's that work?
That would be located in this area right here. That would be kind of accessory for the towing lot to have that use. And then the 3 RV spaces right here.
Are the red buildings up top, is that what the storage units would be?
Yes, all
Red?
Yeah, all 7 of these buildings right here, 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 and then these 2 in the middle. Those are all the mini warehouse facilities.
Is there any screening between them and Route 11?
No, other than this fenced area along here, there's not any screening. I can go ahead and mention now that if you all feel the need to do so, you are within your rights to suggest additional conditions for some required screening along any part of Route 11 where you see beneficial. I guess from staff standpoint, it's a pretty minor compared to some of the other developments that we have. It's a pretty minor level of RV parking. The screening for the proposed fence.
Add that in a lot of cases, the conceptual site plans that you get before you, they tend to show landscaping when somebody is doing something above and beyond what would normally be required. Certainly with the outdoor storage area that you see fenced in on the lower portion here, that does by ordinance have to be screened from street view by opaque fencing as well as vegetative materials. But really all along this frontage, you have a series of drives and parking spaces all along the frontage of both sites. So those areas will be required to have peripheral parking lot landscaping. So there will be a requirement within a 10-foot strip for there to be a certain amount of deciduous canopy trees, understory trees, evergreen trees, as well as shrubs. So that whole frontage, because of the way the site's laid out, will have to have between the parking and drives and the street, a series of landscaping that's required by the ordinance already. A lot of times those basic requirements aren't shown because they're not above and beyond. And that's why we like to put that last condition in. Doesn't really do a whole lot other than state the fact that, by the fact that they're not showing something that's required doesn't alleviate them from having to put in that requirement. So there will be a series of landscaping across the whole frontage. Hope that helps a little bit.
Any other questions for Nick? If not, let's go to the open public meeting. Is there anybody who would like to talk about this? I don't think those are all 24, so. Close the public hearing. And is there any discussion that the board members have?
Well, I'm concerned. I think Dr. Bailey brought up a good point, and it concerns me, notwithstanding what Mr. Pearson said. I mean, it just seems to me that as visible as this is, and more or less the gateway to the gateway, that as a minimum, we ought to have some idea of what it's going to look like from each direction, north, south, east, and west, the elevations that Dick was talking about. And I think that's essential that we have that. We can try to visualize what it's going to look like and what the screening is going to look like, but you really can't just from plan view. I really think we need a perspective and or the elevation views personally before we can make an informed decision.
Is that in a motion?
Well, I guess in order to accomplish that, we'd have to table it.
Yeah.
So if we're looking for a motion, my motion would be table it for 60 days, awaiting more complete drawings, including elevation views.
Okay.
And the reason is, screening is one thing, vegetation is one thing, but until you can see the relative heights, you really don't understand what it's going to screen and, you know.
And see the materials.
Right, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I would propose a tabling in order to allow the development of those drawings. And 60 days seems reasonable to me, but
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'd second that.
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Thank you, Nick. Number 23.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The next item on your agenda was a text amendment that was authorized by the board for the Planning Commission to look at a possible text amendment. This came in the form of a petition in support of a special events facility located off of Valley Road. After that authorization, the applicant for that rezoning from R1 to A1 and a special exception permit for that special events facility actually withdrew that request, and it did not move forward. Since this petition for this text amendment that was authorized was really in support of that one project, and then staff recommended that the Planning Commission just simply deny this request for this text amendment and not move it forward. The Planning Commission did unanimously recommend that the board deny the request. Since we don't have a project for it to be in support of anymore, we didn't feel the need to change the ordinance. I would be happy to go over that amendment as it was drafted if it pleases the board. But if the board would want to follow the recommendation of the Planning Commission and me not go into details on it, I'm happy to do that as well. So I'm looking for direction on how you would like to proceed.
Board members have any direction? Do you want him to go through the amendment itself, or?
I would move that we follow suit with the Planning Commission and deny this request.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And number 24.
Okay, so 24 or the next items really kind of are together. There's a comprehensive plan map amendment that is being was requested in support of the rezoning by the roads and the Chitonis. So if it pleases the board, I'd like to kind of talk about those together. The advertisement on the comprehensive plan map amendment is from the Amsterdam district, where the Botetourt County Board of Supervisors did authorize consideration of a property owner initiated petition for an amendment to the 2010 Comprehensive Plan's future land use map, number 9, to amend the future land use designation at and adjacent to 90 Orchard Lake Drive and identified as tax parcels 87-159, 161C, and 161A. In combination with that, the applicants, the roads and the Chitonis again, request to rezone 51.504 acres from the residential R1 use district to the agricultural A1 use district with possible proper conditions located at and adjacent to 90 Orchard Lake Drive on those same parcel numbers. So the board, as you consider these requests, you'll be asked to make separate motions and take action on each of the requests separately. So in looking at the site, the 3 parcels that are included in the request are highlighted in yellow on your screen. The yellow is a designation for the residential R1 use district. And this probably is best described as being adjacent to Orchard Lake Drive right down from Glebe Road. Certainly here is the Glebe, which is zoned R2 in the orange. The Fairview community to the rear is located in the agricultural A1 use district. the same zoning designation being requested by the applicants. Orchard Lake subdivision on the other side is obviously in the yellow and R1 residential as well. Looking at the aerial photograph, you can see there's one house that is located on the 3 parcels that is resided in by the Rhodes, and it's my understanding that that would continue to be their home place. Again, the 3 parcels total 51.504 acres altogether. You can see the glebe and the other road network in the area, with the Delville Town Center kind of being across the road, Glebe Road from actually the glebe. So looking at the next screen, we felt it was important to kind of show you on the future land use map. This particular area is in the orange, which is designated as medium density residential. There's not another designation of agricultural zoning classification on the future land use map. However, there is the A1 zoning that is in place adjacent to the site in the Fairview subdivision community. There were some questions that came up regarding where public infrastructure was, particularly water and sewer from the Water Authority in relationship to the site and some of the discussions. So this map just kind of shows where those lines are. The Western Virginia Water Authority water is located up at the intersection of Orchard Lake Drive and Glebe Road. It's approximately 160 feet down to the first lot, which is a 5.21 acre portion of what's being requested to be rezoned. Certainly, that's the closest point. And sewer is way back up in front of the glebe entrance itself. Now, the applicant originally came to the Planning Commission and didn't necessarily have any proffered condition that kind of tied down maybe what type of development they wanted to do. At the Planning Commission's request, the applicant did go back and provide a diagram of what he was planning for the property, which is a single-family detached development that would consist of 12 parcels altogether. That would only be, there's one existing house, so there would only be 11 new homes built on the 50-some acre tract of land. There is a proffer statement that is now included in the request. It has several proffers I'll go over in a moment, including the one that would tie down this general lot layout and the number of parcels that would be created. As the applicant notes, that would range from 3+ acres to 6+ acres in size each. One other thing that you'll see is the applicant's parcel being proposed to go to A1 would not meet the minimum lot size. You'll also see a proffered condition where the parcel that the Rhodes home currently sets on would be increased to at least meet the minimum lot size in of itself. So if the rezoning were to be approved, there would be no non-conforming lots created. So looking at the proffered conditions that are included in the proffer statement, the applicant is proposing or offering proffers that the agricultural A1 zoning is for the purpose of single-family dwellings. Home occupations would be allowed home agriculture, and short-term rentals to be to the exclusion of all other agricultural A1 uses. There were a few concerns that came up, or discussions points that came up about what types of ag operations could potentially occur on the property. That was not the intent of the applicant, so they included the condition in here. Just like home agriculture could be done in an R1 district that's already there, there wouldn't be anything allowed from an agricultural perspective that couldn't already be done in that existing zone. The second condition was that the development would meet substantial conformance to the proposed site plan that we just looked at, including the lot layouts and the drive accesses submitted by the applicant. So that's where it would basically tie down the 12 total parcels, one being the one with the existing house. The property shall meet all stormwater control requirements as detailed by Virginia State Code. That's somewhat of a given, but there were discussions that came up in the meeting with some of the homes, the smaller lot homes, just on the lower side or the west side of the site. And the applicant wanted to provide assurance that that would definitely be done. And four, that a plat shall be submitted and approved that increases the size of the road's home site so that it would at least meet the minimum lot size. So the proffer statement will contain these four proffer conditions as being offered by the applicant. So with that being said, I would just add that the Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval of both the future land use map change as well as rezoning A1 with a 3-2 vote. Comments were received at the public hearing were all favorable toward the request. Staff also received several contacts from emails and from the website favorable toward the request. I don't think we got any points of contact that was in opposition of this particular rezoning. I would be happy to answer any questions that you have. I know the applicants should be here tonight as well if you have any questions of them. And again, I would just remind that staff would advise you to take action on the comprehensive plan map amendment first, and then move to the rezoning request from R1 to A1.
Any questions for Drew?
Well, what really, when you get down to it, does the amendment to the comprehensive plan do? What does it allow that we couldn't do otherwise?
The amendment to the comprehensive plan is really in support of that rezoning request back to the A1. Since the comprehensive plan's future land use map shows the residential or medium density residential for the area, it makes the rezoning request then consistent with the comprehensive plan if the amendment to the comp plan happens.
Yeah,
So it's really just in support of
basically it's a
the request.
housekeeping thing.
Mhm.
Can you go back over, Drew, the uses for agriculture? So I'm just imagining there's a lot of people looking for a little bit of land to homestead on. So 5 acres would fit that bill for people in many places. So would food animal production be an acceptable use if it were zoned A1, and then how's that going to fit in with the rest of that?
So with the condition of the uses, the way they're structured in the proffers, if those proffers are accepted by the board, home agriculture, which somebody could do in R1 already, which would be like me having a certain amount of chickens, but no roosters, things along those lines. But I guess that's
the
proffer would not allow for me to have a pony for my children. I couldn't have horse, cattle.
Is that covered in the definition of home agriculture, or I mean, where is that like defined?
So agricultural, there'll be a certain amount of agricultural uses under the term agriculture, under the definition of agriculture, and then there's a definition of limited agriculture. So none of those would be allowed. And if the proffers were accepted, they would only be able to do the home agricultural uses, which would be the number of beehives, the number of the few chickens that I can have to produce eggs for myself, but no roosters. So it was really not looking at allowing farm operations, so to speak, with cattle production, chicken houses, horses, things of that nature. No kind of livestock from that perspective. Goats would not be allowed if that proffer was accepted. So really from a good way to look at it would be that there would be no introduction of any agricultural related uses that aren't already allowed there now in the R1 district if that proffer is accepted by the board.
And some of those, what you were just describing as typical home agriculture use, like a couple chickens.
Mhm.
Would that not be allowable as it stands in R1?
Yes, that is, home agriculture is allowed in R1.
Yeah.
And the applicant is making it clear in the proffers that home agricultural, the typical home occupations that somebody might enjoy, at their home, things like that are typically allowed already in R1 would still be allowed. But the introduction of other agricultural A1 uses, such as the agricultural production type things, the hobby farm where somebody has more than just the chickens and they want to have goats or cows or horses. those type of agricultural uses would not be allowed if that proffer is put in place.
Dr. Bailey?
Yes, so the planning commission was 3-2. Could you give me an idea of the concern of the two that voted against?
Sure. If I had to kind of give you my take on their discussion, the two that were the dissenting votes were just a little concerned about it being in medium density residential, and water is within 160 feet roughly of the first corner of their property. Sewer's a little harder. Sewer's been looked at by the applicant in the past to see what it might take to get sewer there. There's no good corridor to get it there easy. It would take a pump station to come back up Orchard Lake, up Glebe Road, and tie in probably at that intersection in front of the Glebe, which would be very expensive to do that public extension. The planning commissioners that voted, not in favor of the request, still felt like that if the density were brought up high enough in that R1 district, say like with a cluster lot development, where you could really get your numbers up, that it could possibly be feasible for a developer to do those public extensions of water and sewer. And this is area, we don't have a lot of large tracts that are very conducive, where there are water and sewer that could be available for development. And they just felt like, to take it down to a level that you would only put 12 homes there was not in the best interest of the future.
So in other words, it's got private septic and private water.
Yes, this would have well and septic, but you're looking at maybe 12 lots
Sure.
total versus,
Right.
I forget, one of the plans I think that they looked at a number of years ago, had well over 100 units, might have been 120 something units. So it was a density type loss
Understood. Thank you.
concern.
Any other questions? If no questions, I'll open up a public hearing. And Robert Kemp, is that right? I can have you come down, just name, address, and you have 3 minutes.
Can I defer to Rhodes first?
Can you defer? That's fine. To who is that?
He's a landowner.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Absolutely.
Hello, I am Suzanne Eikenberry, Rhodes, 90 Orchard Lake Drive, Daleville, Virginia. And I've had the privilege of making connections with most of you in the past few years. When I taught public school, certainly saw Dr. Scott Horn and Billy at their school board meetings. I was a BEA officer. Before that, I directed 2 preschools in the county. I'm sorry. And this goes way back when I taught Steve Clinton's children in preschool, but more recently, I really appreciate your 5 priorities for Amsterdam vicinity and follow you on that. And I'm thankful that you are representing us. And I know, of course, Dr. Bailey is a neighbor for years. And Amy, let me tell you, I have a daughter, Amy. She lives in France. She works at the UN in Switzerland. She's actually here tonight with her little 1-year-old, so she's not really in here, I don't think. But she said to me, aren't there any women on any of those boards in Botetourt County? And I smiled and said, yes, there's Amy White from Buchanan District. So thank you for being here, Amy. But just wanted to give you a little bit of history of the Eikenberries. By the 1800s, the Eikenberries were settled in Franklin County after migrating there from Germany, from Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, down to Franklin. And in the 1890s, 3 young Eikenberry brothers moved to Botetourt County from Franklin County. 2 of them came to teach at the Daleville Academy and Daleville College, which eventually merged with Bridgewater College. The 3rd brother was my granddad, BR. He was a principal in a Franklin County school, and he met a new teacher, Idonia Lehman, from the Trinity area of Botetourt. And the rest was history. They fell in love, and they made their home in Franklin County and had their first child there in 1898. Well, those horse and buggy rides really got tiresome when they came back here to see her family. And finally, you know, BR had not only fallen in love with Idonia, but he began to fall in love with Botetourt County. So they moved to the Lehman farm in Botetourt County. They had 4 more children there, and the youngest was my father, Justice, who was born in 1905. So in 1906, my grandfather bought 121 acres in Daleville and built their homestead, and he paid $7,350 for it. It still stands for a short time to the right of the glebe entrance. It was a working farm with a windmill that pumped water from the well. They had lots of gardens and orchards, along with meat and a vegetable storehouse, a huge barn, and a lumber mill. And that's where our home stands today on Orchard Lake Drive. It was a wonderful place for a grandchild to go visit grandparents and to play there. Native oak trees supplied the framework for my dad's home place, as well as the next generation's homes built on Half a Glebe Road. Our driveway is the bed of the original Stagecoach Wilderness Trail, the part that ran from Amsterdam, where travelers stayed overnight at a wonderful, beautiful inn that people bragged about back in England. And then it went on to Blacksburg from our driveway. By 1915, Botetourt County was the 2nd largest tomato canning county in the U.S., with 193 canneries. And the first was located in California, so that's pretty impressive. My grandfather served as president of the Virginia Canners Association, and he was very involved in starting those tomato canneries and growing all those tomatoes with his brothers. But the tomato blight started closing canneries, and that's when my grandfather and his brother, Uncle C.S., turned to planting orchards, forming Eikenberry Brothers, growing apples and peaches, now in the 5th generation. And during that time, Granddaddy also served as the Commissioner of Revenue for Botetourt County. I'm the youngest of 14 grandchildren, most of which are 20 years older than I, because my dad was a lot older when I was born. After selling our home place on Glebe Road, my parents lived at Richfield and Friendship. But my father never forgot Daleville, and he decided to move back here at the age of 96 to the foot of his beloved Tinker Mountain. How he loved Tinker Mountain. They moved into their last home, the Glebe, in 2006, and that was 100 years after he had moved to that land as a child on Glebe Road. The Eikenberry family passed on the love of this land to me and my cousins who run Eikenberry Orchards, and now it's time to settle the final estate that's been a part of our family for almost 120 years. Our dream is to see Eikenberry acres with lots of green space, with biodiversity, along with a few homes full of families who appreciate Botetourt County's heritage. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That was fantastic.
I get the job of going over why we're developing it. We feel like there's several reasons, and we've taken quite a bit of time to understand what should happen with this piece of property. We have talked with neighbors extensively. We have thought about the county, the comprehensive plan and the zoning that's currently there. And with our proposal, we feel like it will significantly limit the increase of traffic flowing onto Orchard Lake, Glebe Road, and 220. And I'm sure you all know how much traffic travels up and down Roanoke Road. every day. It will minimize the ever-increasing strain on our student density in the county. I understand there's thoughts and plans to build a new high school because Lord Botetourt's overcrowded at this point. It will help alleviate the crowding at Greenfield and Reed Mountain as well, as opposed to putting in 120 homes on this plot. We feel that it will blend well with the surrounding community. They are accustomed to seeing open land, and this will keep it mostly open as we're proposing it. It will preserve the biodiversity and setting for wildlife that wouldn't happen if we did high density development. And it's more appealing and more supported by our neighbors than a medium density development would be. In your packet on, I think it's pages 167 through 169, there's a signatures on a petition. The petition reads, "We, the undersigned, being neighbors of said properties and residents of Orchard Lake, Fairview, and Hollymead subdivisions, do hereby petition the Planning Commission of Botetourt County meeting in session on November 13th, 2023 to grant the rezoning request of Linda I. Shiatani et al. For parcels identified as 87-159 and 87-161C and of JW and Suzanne I. roads for parcel identity identified as 87-161A. From residential District 1 to agricultural 81, and it was signed by 52 of our neighbors. And if those who are here to support this would stand, you see they turned out tonight. Now I'll turn it over to their option.
Sir, may I ask, private roads, you're proposing private roads,
Yeah,
and why is that?
because public roads under R1 require curb and gutter and be way too expensive to put in for 12 lots.
Do they require, I guess they do now, don't they? R1 private roads, do they?
It's got
Yeah.
to come up to secondary
That's
standard
sure.
roads, and my understanding of that is that everything has to have curb and gutter now at secondary level.
Maybe right, we built a bunch of them in this county, you know, without curb. and
Well, I mean,
gutter.
all those that are in our neighborhood now do not have
Right, yeah,
curb and gutter. So that's part of keeping with the setting that is already there, as opposed to having to come into higher development.
well, do you have any plans on how you'll handle the private roads as far as maintenance and land clearing and
It will be
escrow and all that?
the requirement of the owners of the properties it serves to maintain that road. So
So there's a
On the-
mandate of homeownership,
Huh?
homeowners.
the homeowners will be responsible for maintaining that road, yeah, because it's a private road. And the one, I don't know whether, is there a mouse on this thing? Yeah, this greenway here would serve these 4 properties here. So those 4 would be responsible for maintaining, keeping in equal portions that roadway. These 2 down here would have private drives right onto Orchard Lake. And then these 4 over here would have an access drive here that would be maintained by those 4 property owners.
Yeah, I guess we're not here to advise you on that. I personally am not crazy about private roads, but what you're describing, I don't know that it can work that way. I would just advise you look into how an HOA works and what the requirements are in terms of the sale of the lots and transfer of ownership.
Yeah, we'll definitely have things in place at the time of the sale. I was not aware that had to be in place for this meeting, but we will have
Yeah.
have
Just-
covenants in place when the lots are sold.
Say again?
We will have covenants in place when the lots are sold.
Right.
But they will have
But
to,
somebody has to maintain and take care of the lots that aren't sold at that stage, you know, it gets complicated.
okay. Taken under advisement.
But
Other
I don't
questions?
I don't guess we care about whether, well, we care, but as far as curb and gutter versus no curb and gutter, doesn't make a whole lot of difference to me. And again, you might want to make sure, I don't know that you need to have curb and gutter. I'm not saying you do or you don't. I would check if I, and
Well,
obviously.
having read the Botetourt County Code for residential R1, it says got to be state maintained, and that requires curb and gutter. So I'm just going by the code, what I read in the code for the Botetourt County.
Yeah, okay, well, just make sure you know what you're doing on that.
All right.
I don't think it matters to us particularly.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. All right. Let's go back to you, Robert, if you could.
So Chairman Scott Horn and Amy White, Vice Chair. So and Mr. Bailey, Mr. Martin, and Mr. Clinton. I'm in 550 Fairview. It's a subdivision, only about 11 homes, and it's about 40 acres. It's zone A1. It's on the I guess the north end of the tract that we're talking about. It's no curb and gutter there. So hopefully I'm not in trouble. But I'm going to do everything right, for the subdivision as well as for the county in terms of my responsibility. I recently purchased the land about 2.5 years ago. I was excited about it, still excited about it. It's my dream house there, right on the corner up on the hill. My family of 5 lived there. We're 5 adults. Reason why I chose that land is certainly because it's quiet. You can actually see the deer on the land across the neighbor. You can see geese flying over. It's a charming community. Someone mentioned the word cluster. That's kind of like a negative to the community from my perspective, certainly, of seeing that happen in the current state of residential. And so, we're similar in terms of 38 acres within that subdivision. We're in that yellow over there. Suffice that to say, my family and I would be grateful for your careful consideration to help our community stay quiet, charming, and moreover, prevent a cluster, significant residential impact over a larger scale. We definitely support the request in recent 1113 Planning Commission approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jim Crosby.
Thank you. I was going to be a little bit lighthearted initially here and just say it's my birthday, so I like you to provide a birthday present for me. But since some of you guys already know me, I'll lay off the joking. I am, excuse me, I moved here over 30 years ago, and the reason I moved here is because of the nature and the quality of Botetourt in the environment in which Botetourt was. And we would like to keep it that way as much as possible. I see some dense housing going in a number of areas. And I know that the folks that currently live in the neighborhood would like to keep it that way. And I would like to, I'm very much would appreciate it if we could go along with this change from R1 to A1. And so that we will not create a density problem. It will definitely create a problem in those, you've all been on Glebe Road, and probably some of you have been on Orchard Lake Road Drive. And the nature of those roads, if we go to R1 and then there's very dense housing goes in, it would be catastrophic. And matter of fact, when I came over here tonight and with the non-dense situation that it is, the traffic is picking up quite a bit. So I would appreciate it if you folks would approve this proposal that came from the Planning Commission of going from R1 to A1 as shown on the screen. And I know that the people in the neighborhood would like it to keep it that way. And if for those of you folks that have neighbors in a neighborhood, you would probably like to keep your neighborhood the way it is. And so I would look forward that we could keep it the way it is. And so we could vote for this approval. I'd greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Good for you.
Carol Edwards.
Let's see if this mic is on. Yes, it is. Good evening to the illustrious board of gentlemen and lady and gentlemen. I'd like to express my thanks to the chairman of the board, Dr. Scott Horn, and also to Dr. Bailey and Mr. Martin and Mr. Clinton and Amy White for listening to what I have to say. My name is Carol Edwards with an E, Carol. I'm 85 years old. I live at the Glebe. I've lived there for 18 years. And I signed up to be a Glebe resident 5 years before it actually opened. My friend and I had driven the country, visited 24 retirement communities. And when we saw that one was going to be built in Daleville, we were over the moon because we love this town. We love this county. And I, of course, am in favor of changing the zoning to A1. Now, you may say, what right do I have to speak when I live at the Glebe, which could be considered dense housing? But I happen to know a gentleman named Bob, I knew him, Bob Harshbarger, and his wife Dora, who are now deceased. They were members or residents of Orchard Lake, and I'm sure many of you who lived in Orchard Lake way back knew Bob and Dora. And I became very friendly with Bob and his wife. And Bob told me that initially when the Glebe was going to be built, it was going to be much taller, 6 or 7 stories, then 5 stories and 6 stories. He said, and people were very upset, which I totally understand. Well, what happened? Virginia Baptist Homes, which is the parent community, it's now called LifeSpire. Virginia Baptist Homes had many discussions with concerned citizens. And it was wonderful to know and to learn this all from Bob. I was not here way back then. I was only here the last 18 years. That the folks in the neighborhood, the concerned citizens, were listened to by what I call the suits. You know, the suits. Everybody's up there has a suit on. And the suits really paid attention. And today, if you drive through the Glebe, you are driving through what looks like a college campus, a park with bushes and trees and flora and fauna and flowers and walking trails. It's a magnificent campus. Why? Because Virginia Baptist Homes, and I'm not a Baptist, maybe that's against me tonight, I don't know, but I'm just one of the crowd. And Virginia Baptist Homes listened to the concerned citizens of Daleville and Botetourt County. And that is what I am asking you, and Suzanne and JW are asking you to do tonight. Suzanne and JW are a phenomenal couple. I said to them, oh, my time's up. I got to talk fast. I said to them, why don't you just developers are knocking your door down. They want to buy your property, put up 150 ticky-tacky houses. I could put my coffee cup out. My neighbor could put my cream in. Is this what we want in Daleville? I don't think so. So I think the proffers of 10 to 12 acres, 10 to 12 properties with lovely homes, all in fitting with Orchard Lake, is really what this beautiful, I have never lived anywhere that I love as much as here. I came down from New York City, built a lovely home on Smith Mountain Lake, but 18 years ago, the best decision I ever made in my life was to move to the glebe in Daleville and Botetourt County. Thank you so much, lady and gentlemen, for your attention to me this evening.
Thank you, Karen. Debbie Vance?
Hello, and thank you for your time. I am not a member of your district, but I sure would love to be. I am one of the prospective buyers of the property that JW and Suzanne are hoping to sell. So the reason that I want to come here is I grew up in Clifton Forge, and my father took us to Iconberry orchards and Lehman orchards every single year. As a young child, I could remember going to those orchards and picking all the apples because he made apple butter every single year. And then he passed that on down to his own grandchildren. So I have lovely memories of doing that. And I think my father would sit up in his coffin today if he knew that his daughter was actually going to buy Iconberry property. So I currently live in Smith Mountain Lake, and I am an hour away from my children, an hour away from my job, 2 hours away from my 86-year-old mother, and this property is perfect. The reason my daughter called me up, and she's very, very excited about this property. Her and her husband have been looking all around Botetourt County for property. What made it so exciting to her is that she says, Mom, you feel like you're in the middle, you're out in the country, but you're close to everything. And that's the appeal that has for us. And that's the appeal of that whole neighborhood and what these neighbors want to do to keep it that way. You feel like you're out in the middle of, the countryside with the beautiful sunsets, and you have all of that. And yet you guys have developed Daleville in such a beautiful way. You have doctors and dentists and restaurants and coffee shops and bagel shops and churches. And we have visited some of your churches in the neighborhood already. And so it would be a golden opportunity and a dream come true for me to be able to my husband and I bought our home in Smith Mountain Lake about 2-3 years ago, and with plans to retire there. Best laid plans. So that was our plan, is to retire there. And we were the babies when we moved in. Everybody else is up there retired, and we got up and went to work every morning. And, but as with best laid plans, the good Lord had other plans, and my husband passed away a year ago in this month. So since that time, that property, that beautiful retirement place that we had picked out for me, has become lonely and very isolating to me. So for me, it would be a dream come true to be able to live next to my children, next to my son-in-law. And believe it or not, there's not that many people who want to live next to their mother, and especially their mother-in-law. But I'm lucky enough that my son-in-law likes his mother-in-law, and I can help them with their children as they begin to start a family, and they can look after me as I begin to age and get older in life. So that's our goal. We have no intention of raising horses, cattle, pigs, or any kind of agricultural anything. We just would like you to consider rezoning so that we can put a septic and a well for the houses that we want to build. Thank you so
Thank you.
much, and thank you for your time.
Jesse O'Connor?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time today. My name is Jesse O'Connor. I live in Roanoke, Virginia, and I am Debbie's son-in-law. So I'm here to speak also on behalf of the rezoning for the proposed lots here. A bit about myself. I grew up in Allegheny County, but I went to James River High School for my high school education. And so Botetourt County was there for me in a lot of my formidable years, and I kind of fell in love with the area. I love Buchanan. I love Daleville. I love the growth we've seen in Daleville recently. And I know there's a lot of it, a lot of apartments, a lot of new houses, a lot of new people coming in. But one of the things I think is incredible about Botetourt is how, like Debbie said, you can be so close to everything and also be able to live on your own plot of land. And that's just the dream for myself and my wife and my new child. So I'm very excited for the opportunity for this, but the rezoning would be
very helpful to make that happen. I know that's no small ask. I know you all had a very large plan already. So thank you for your time and listening to us.
Thank you. Bill Fusco? This has been a pretty enjoyable session. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Bill Fusco. I live right across the street from the property they want to develop. And I'm in total agreement because I developed my 4.3 acres exactly like they want to develop their property. I left about 60% of my property in trees to preserve the rural nature and beauty, which is what they described in their original proposal. So I understand exactly what they want to do. My wife and I, about 7 years ago, looked all over the place, Bent Mountain, Blue Ridge, Salem, Pogues Mill, and so forth. We couldn't find something like this. And so I'd like people like Debbie and her son-in-law, if people like that want to find some property like this, I'd like them to have the opportunity to buy some property too like that. I got to give you folks a lot of credit. You developed some nice properties or had through zoning. What's in Daleville Town Center has got all kinds of lots available for somebody who wants a smaller lot, patio home, so forth. So what I'm suggesting is it'd be nice to have a balance for, it's not a lot of people, but there are some people who want 2 or 3 or 4 acres for people like them to be able to buy something like that. And just because I have mine, I like to have somebody else be able to have one too. And believe me, right now you'll find something that's either out in the middle of nowhere or next to a feedlot or a scrapyard or whatever. So I'd like other people to have what's available in this area of Botetourt. The last thing is I had some experience at what happens with what I'll call the national builders. When I lived in the Charlotte area, Shea Homes there, they come in and would take that piece of property and just clear cut it and level it and destroy the natural beauty that's there. And you wouldn't be able to, I wanted to buy a lot from one of their properties and they wouldn't listen. They wouldn't let me develop the lot how I wanted it. They wanted to clear cut it. So with JW and his wife, Suzanne, all of us neighbors know them. You can work things out. You can talk to them. So there's somebody here we can work with. And anybody else that would buy that property, there'd be no talking to them. No negotiating. They'll do whatever they want to do. So I'd like you to approve it if you could. And I understand the situation you're in. You're trying to balance future development and so forth. But I think this one case here, if you were to do something different for that one section of property in between everything else, it would just do some harm to a nice area. So thank you for your time and good luck on the decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've seen you before at Lowe's quite a bit. Buying garden property, buying garden produce. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Fred Kreutz.
Good evening.
I'm Fred Coots. I own that little piece of land up there. That's that blue little section right there. Wrong thing. Well, I own that little property that abuts JR and Suzanne's property. And I'm here to tell you that the lot sizes that we have bordering Orchard Lake are about the size of the Orchard Lake and the lot sizes that Suzanne and JR want to build and are proposing. I would be very much in favor of it because it preserves all the wonderful things that these people have been talking about. Nature. We've been talking about the solitude that we get out in that area. Everybody, this is a heartfelt thing for so many people that I think that your sensitivity on this would go well placed. You all are in a period of development for Botetourt County, but we need to do it also in a spirit of preserving what we all moved here for. And that was, I moved from Salem back in 1984. I moved out here. And that's a long time. And I love it here. Haven't moved. Going to stay right here. Like it. The infrastructure is coming. You all are making that happen. And that's appreciated. The sewer situation for a massive housing area would be an issue. We don't have an issue with it right now. And if we do, come talk to me, because it would need to run through my property, and I would be happy to entertain conversations with the county as well as the developer. So I would just close in saying, please consider JR and Suzanne, what they're trying to preserve here, what we're all looking for here. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Coots. Anybody else would like to speak? Not? Oh, yes. Yes, sir. Yes, if you can use that microphone up there, it'd be fantastic. Just present your name and address.
My name's Jeff Rudisell. I live in Orchard Lakes. Moved here in 1974. Next year will be my 50th year in Botetourt County, in Orchard Lake subdivision, Botetourt County. These people have said most of the things that need to be said. To me, our area of Daleville is probably certainly the most beautiful place I've ever lived. And there's a lot of nice places, but it's a great place. I don't think we, for commercial reasons and a lot of reasons, and getting more people in here and everything, I don't think we have the right to destroy what's here. There's too much traffic coming out here. There's too much population, stoplights and everything. And I think we need to preserve some of what we were given when we moved here. JW and Suzanne's come up with a good plan to preserve their family's legacy and preserve what Botetourt County was when I moved here 50 years ago. And I support them, what they're trying to do, and hope you agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, said, we'll close the public hearing. Any discussion upon board members? Or any questions that you have for Drew?
Question for Drew. I think I'm confident with the answer to this, but whatever restrictions or conditions we impose on this property now passes with the title. If it were sold as as unrealistic as this is, but if next Tuesday the whole plat were to go on the market after we've approved this, condition with it, is that correct?
Yes, you're correct, sir. If the offered proffers are accepted by the board as part of the approval, then that will run with the land. So if somebody did come along and buy the land, they would still be subject to those same proffered conditions being offered by the applicant. And somebody else would have to go buy those or try to come back through the public hearing process to amend or delete them.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Drew, in our packet, the deed book, page book 245, page 675, it's got some highlighted or some underlined red things. Are those part of the proffers that would apply?
That would not be my understanding. That is some examples of what the applicant is proposing to establish as some restrictive
This is an
covenant associated
example.
with the
This
property.
doesn't. Okay.
To be similar to what is around in the area, but that is not a part of what we would normally do or get involved with restrictive covenants anyway.
Okay. So this is just an example. Okay. And just for the record, I'm not against pigs and cows. I was just asking those questions earlier to avoid neighborhood arguments. I'm trying to think about what could be offensive to one is beautiful to another. So that's why I was asking those questions.
Any other questions for Drew? If not, if you're standing right there, we have two things we have to take care of. We have to amend the land map change.
Comprehensive plan, future land use map
Yeah.
would be your first item for
So,
discussion.
and then the second thing would be R1 to A1.
The rezoning itself from R1 to A1.
Okay.
And whether or not you accept the proper conditions.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe wrong with
So,
that.
in front of us, we have our comprehensive plan land map change here that we need to amend. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Not all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The second one is taking this from a R1 to a A1
So
with the proper conditions.
Second.
With those proper conditions, we have
Yes.
proposal seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'll just say, this has been a great meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we proceed to approve this, we're really accomplishing just about everything I think that the citizens have said, and which was really pretty fulfilling to hear how people feel about the neighborhood. But the words that recurred, the particular word that was recurrent, it was preserve. And that we are preserving something here worth preserving. And you combine that with the kind of diversity of lifestyles that Daleville offers. Like people have said, you can live here and kind of feel like you're out in the country, but be real close to amenities. So it's a good combination. And I think this rezoning proposal helps preserve that combination. I think it's
I
pretty
have to
cool.
agree that there's been, Suzanne, I appreciate the historical events that have happened to that. That was just absolutely wonderful to hear. So thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, could I add to that too? I agree with Mr. Clinton. Sitting here thinking how I wanted to say this, but I think this has been one of the most positive meetings that we've had in a long time. And really, and everyone seems to be in one accord, in unity. And, you're looking forward to having a good place, enjoying yourself for a long time. So I hope it does come to fruition, and thank you.
And I'll add too, we can't always control what people do with their land as much as people would like to think we can. Sometimes the decision is not ours. And this is I think a rare opportunity to exercise that. I think we do have an opportunity here. And I also echo what my colleagues have said. Thank you all for your respectful manner tonight and for your encouraging words. It does us good to hear that. And we're glad that we can be a small part of it. So I do think we have an opportunity.
It's so easy when everybody agrees, right?
Yeah, it is. Isn't it fantastic? The whole room is.
It's a good feeling. Thank
So
you.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all. Now, Mr. Morton. Mr. Martin, if you could.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second that.